Hello. So right now we're going to do some practice questions on the unit that we've been talking about. So we've been talking about taxes, for example, sales taxes. We've been talking about decimals, fractions, percent, converting from one to another, and we've also been talking about ratios. So now we're going to practice some questions associated with all this. So we're going to start with stuff having to do with percent, decimals, and fractions, and then we're going to move on to taxes and discounts and deductions, and we're now going to move on to ratios. So, question 1. Write the fraction 2 over 5 as a percent. Write the fraction 2 over 5 as a percent. Well, anytime you want to move from anything to percentage, you have to multiply by 100. So if I want to write 2 over 5 as a percent, I multiply it by 100. So I'm going to do 2 over 5 times 100. Now if I plug this into my calculator, so 2 times 100 is 200. 200 divided by 5 is 40. So this is 40%. I don't have to plug it into my calculator. Or I can say 2 over 5 is 0.4. 0.4 times 100 is 40. So 40%. Question 2. So, find the percent of the number 0.2% of 360. Actually, I'm sorry, I think this question may be confusing a bit. I think it might be easier for me to just say that so I think I make your life easier if all I say is find 0.2% of 360. Simple. I apologize for that. Find or evaluate 0.2% of 360. So, anytime you see off, that means multiply. So we're going to do 0.2% times 360. Anytime you see a number percent, that means that number over 100. So 0.2 over 100 times 360. So, for this one, we can decide to multiply 0.2 times 360 and then divide by 100, or we can do some math here. We can cancel out the zeros, and we can say 0.2 over 10 is 0.02. So we're shifting the dot over by 1 because we have the 1 0 here. Or simply, we can just do 0.2 times 36 on our calculator to make life easier, divided by 10. And this is 0.72. Yeah, so the answer here is 0.72. So basically, we have converted, so the answer is just 0.72. Question 3, write, so basically for this one, they want us to convert from percent to decimal. So go from percent to decimal. 250% is 250 over 100. So we just have to evaluate this one. The zeros cancel out. I have just the 1 0 on the bottom. So technically we have a decimal here, so we shift it over to the left once. So the final answer is 2.5. Alright, so this one is saying that write the decimal 1.7 as a fraction as well as a percent. So 1.7. So first of all, this means that 1 plus 0.7 So we have the one whole number part, we have the 0.7 part. Now 0.7 really means 7 over 10 when it comes to fractions. And the way we arrive at that is that we were saying earlier on that you take the number that you have after the decimal, so 7, you have it on top, and then you say 7 over, and then you change the 0 point to 1 on the bottom, and then the number after the decimal turns to 0 on the bottom. So 0.7 is actually 7 over 10. So now we're done converting this to fraction. So 1 is the same thing as 1 over 1. We want to have the same denominator. So this is a 10, so we multiply by 10 each. So we're going to have 10 over 10 plus 7 over 10. So we're going to have 17 over 10. So they're asking us to convert to fraction. So the fraction is 17 over 10. And as a percentage, I'm going to do I and II. So as a percent, so we just multiply 17 over 10 by 100. Or if you like, you can just multiply 1.7 by 100. So you're going to get 170%. You can also decide to cancel these two zeros out, this one and this one, so that now you have 17 times 10, which is 170. Alright, so next question, question 5. Write the decrease as a percent. So the price of a book decreased from $15 to $12. $15 to $12. So write the decrease as a percent. So there's a little formula here. So the formula is going to be decrease divided by original price. I'm going to say original times 100 because it's in right as a percent. So the decrease is going to be 15 minus 12. Minus 12. Original is $15, so 15 times 100. So the change or the decrease is by $3 because it's 15 minus 12, so that's 3 over 15. So 1 over 5 times 100 is 20, so 20%. So the percent decrease is 20%. So we can say that the price of the book decreased by 20%. Question 6. 75% of a number is 18. Find that number. So let's call that number x. So we can say 75% x is 18. Find x. 75% is 75 over 100, which is 0.75. 0.75x is 18. So we have to find x. So we need to get x by itself. In order to do that, we're going to divide each side by 0.75. We're going to talk more about that when we do the unit on equations. So it will make more sense then. Now the 0.75 cancels each other. And then we have 18 over 0.75. And this is 24. So x is 24. So that means the number in question here is 24. So 75% of 24 is 18. And that makes sense for sure. All right. So question 7. Suppose you are in Northwest Territory. Find the GST, that is the government sales tax, on a cordless phone that costs $24.97. So suppose you are in Northwest Territory, which is one of the territories in Canada. Find the GST or the government sales tax on a cordless phone that costs $24.97. So let's see. So first of all, we need to know what the GST in the Northwest Territory is, and I believe it is 5%. So we're going to find 5% of $24.97. So that will be 5% times $24.97. So that is 5% is 5 divided by 100. So 5 divided by 100 times 24.97. So let me quickly check what this is. All right, so this is $1.25. $1.25. So you're going to be paying a GST of $1.25 if you're buying this cordless phone that costs $24.97 in the Northwest Territory. So basically 5% of $24.97 is $1.25. Question 8 says that write this ratio as a fraction. So write this ratio, 12:16, as a fraction. So usually the left number goes on top, the right number goes on the bottom. So the fraction here will be 12/16. But also we need to reduce this, or we can decide to reduce this to its lowest form. So I can have a common factor here of 2. I have another one, it is 4. So it's better if we use the greatest common factor. It lessens our work. So I'm going to go with 4. How many times does 4 go into 12? It is 3. And how many times does 4 go into 16? It is 4 times 4, which is 16. So it is 4. Question 9. For this question, write a part-to-part ratio and a part-to-whole ratio. And this is the question right here. These last 2 lines. It says a student had 9 green counters and 7 red counters on his desk. So for this question, write a part-to-part ratio and write a part-to-whole ratio. So part-to-part means you're comparing this part to this part. Part-to-whole ratio means you're comparing this part to the total, the overall total. Now, for the first one, part-to-part ratio, I'm going to do A. So that means 9 green counters to 7 red counters. So that means we're going to do 9:7. And then for the second one, we need to know the whole. So I'm going to compare the grain to the whole. I'm going to choose to compare the grain to the whole. If the question specifies, then make sure you take the one that is specifying. So for example, if the question is saying that find the ratio of the grain to the whole, make sure you do that. If the question is saying find the ratio of the red to the whole, make sure you do that. So this question is not specifying. I'm going to choose to compare the grain to the whole. So I can see that the grain is 9. So that one is going to come first. 9 colon or ratio and ratio total. The total is 9 plus 7, which is 16. So it is going to be 9:16. All right. All right. So let's look at questions 10, 11, and 12. So question 10 says that write 3 equivalent ratios to 14:4. So that means write 3 other ratios that are similar to 14:4. So whenever you're doing this, as long as you're multiplying by the same number, you'll be getting the same similar ratios, or you're dividing by the same number across the board. For both numbers, you'll be getting similar ratios. So I'm going to try and do both. I'm going to start by dividing across the board by 2. So 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So 7:2 is similar or equivalent to 14:4, and I'm going to multiply by, for the fun of it, I'm going to multiply by 10. So 14 times 10 is 140. 4 times 10 is 40. So 140:40 is equivalent to 14:4. And lastly, I'm going to multiply by 2. 14 times 2 is 28. 4 times 2 is 8. So 28:8 is equivalent or similar to 14:4. Number 11. So write 3:12:18 in simplest form. So please keep in mind that whenever you're dealing with ratios, they may not only be comparing 2 sets of numbers. You can actually compare more than 2 sets of numbers. So like in this case, where we're comparing 3 different sets of numbers. So please keep that in mind. But then you still do the same thing. You still use the same strategy. So write this in simplest form. So that means that we're going to look for a common factor between all 3 of them, preferably the greatest common factor, because that will automatically give us this ratio in simplest form. Now looking at this, I can see the greatest common factor is 3, because 3 goes into every single one of them. Another way of thinking of that is that you can do each of these divided by 3 without getting a decimal or a decimal number. So here I can do 3. So how many times does this 3 go into that 3? Just once. How many times does that 3 go into 12? 4 times. Why? Because 3 times 4 is 12. How many times does 3 go into 18? Well, 6 times. Because 3 times 6 is 18. Question 12. In a basketball game in Miami, now Miami is in the state of Florida, in the United States of America, USA. John made 6 of 13 free shots. Some people like to call them free throws in basketball. Jackson made 5 of 9. Who played better? Well, let's figure it out. Let's start by putting this into ratio and then converting to fractions and then converting to decimal. So 6 of 13. So I'm going to say John is 6:13, and I'm going to say Jackson is 5:9. Now I'm going to convert from ratio to fraction. So this one is going to be 6/13, and this is going to be 5/9. And lastly, I'm going to convert each one to decimal, because when I convert to decimal, it's much easier for me to see exactly the difference. 0.46. And when I convert this one to decimal, it is 5 divided by 9, 0.56. Now clearly I can see that Jackson's decimal is bigger than John's decimal. So the question is saying that who played better? then I will say that Jackson played better. Therefore, Jackson played better. All right. All right. So, question 13. So given this ratio, so 120 ratio 70 equals 12 ratio k, find k. So that means this ratio is equivalent to this ratio. So we have to figure out k. Well, let's see. Now I can see that, now I'm looking for a relationship between the first and the first, and the second and the second. So I'm comparing I'm comparing first, and I'm comparing second. So in this case, I can see that the relationship between 120 and 12 is that 120 divided by 10 equals 12. So also I can say 70 divided by 10 equals 7. So that's how to figure out k. So I'm going to say k equals 70 divided by 10. So k is 7. So again, 120 over 10 is 12. So 70 over 10 is 7. All right. Question 14. An ad said 4 out of 5 dentists recommend a certain chewing gum for their patients. Suppose 185 dentists were interviewed. Find the number of dentists who recommend this particular gum. So it's going to be similar to this one. The difference is that this is a word problem, so we have to extract the necessary numbers from the word problem and then construct that and then solve what they're asking for. So 4 out of 5. So from there I can construct a part to whole ratio. So 4 is a part, 5 is a whole. So that will be 4 ratio 5 equals. So suppose 185 dentists were interviewed. So that means the total for the second one is 185. Because the question is saying that out of 185 dentists, how many of them, so was a part that will be recommending this particular chewing gum for their patients. So I'm going to call this X, and all we have to do is solve for X. So well, I'm going to make comparisons again. So first together, and then second together. Now because I know the second and the second, I want to deal with that first before moving on to first. Now I'm looking for a relationship between 5 and 185, so I'm going to do 185 divided by 5. Now I can see that basically they said 185 divided by, now I can see here story that if I do 185 over 5, I get 37. Another way to put that is to say that 185 divided by 37 equals 5. So also X divided by 37 will equal 4. Another way to put that is to say 5 times 37 equals 185. So also 4 times 37 must equal X. So I'm going to do that. 4 times 37, so that is 148. So this means that 148 out of 185 dentists recommend this particular chewing gum. So that means 148 out of 185 is equivalent to 4 out of 5. All right. Thank you.